There is Hope Radio. Your radio host is the Let's Get Real PreacherRichD of Creating Futures.
Well, welcome to There's Hope Radio. This is your radio host, PreacherRichD, and I have Bobby the Seeker on the line with me. Bobby, thank you for taking the time to do a podcast. We're all got busy schedules, and yet we seem to be able to find the time to do these most of the time. So thank you for being on the air with me.
Of course, I think there's a reason for that, and that's, my life is God. I have to take the time to make time for God. So.
That could be another podcast. We're going to be talking about overcoming fear, but we could have a podcast just talk about the fact that no matter how busy you are, if you don't make time for God, then life will take over instead of God taking over. So that could be, again, a podcast in itself.
Sure.
All right. Well, we're going to be covering Bible promises to overcome fear. So here's the reality. Every single person, every person that's going to listen to this podcast, every person that doesn't listen to this podcast deals with fear at times, struggles with fear at times, can be consumed with fear. But this podcast is all about Bible promises to overcome fear, and I have a question to ask, and that, how about replacing our fears with the promises of God? Taking whatever it is that we fear and then going to the Word of God and see what His promises are, of that He is going to meet our needs, He's going to take care of us, He's going to watch over us. And so what we're going to do is take a look at some verses on that. But I want to look at a couple of verses before we do that. And one is why we should not fear. And when we say fear, we're talking about fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, all those things, and that they can overtake us and we can fret over the future, and we have no control over the future. So Matthew 6:34 says, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." So it says that each day has trouble of its own. I think we'll be able to acknowledge that. I want to make a comment, and then Bobby, you can jump in. If we're busy worrying about tomorrow, have fears what tomorrow will bring, we will not address what needs to be addressed today. Again, the Bible verse is, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." In other words, each day has its own issues, its own challenges. And if we're trying to figure out tomorrow, my position is many times what happens is then we don't address what we have to deal with today, and then we just make tomorrow worse because we didn't deal with today. So, Bobby, jump in. Give some viewpoints on that mindset.
Well, I think we've seen that God is a reasonable God, and God is a logical God, a pragmatic God. And so His word is logical. And so, that's what they're saying here. I mean, it's like, so there's so many variables, so many things that can change before tomorrow. And so whatever the fear is, maybe you got a big test and you're, college student or whatever. I mean, whatever it is, whatever fear you have tomorrow, there's so many things that can happen. And it's just not logical to worry about something that's not here yet.
It's not here yet. And what about the fact that most of the time, so then you have false evidence that appears real. So here's the problem. Some things that we fear for tomorrow are not even going to come true. We don't even know that what we're fearing tomorrow is going to come true. But if we spend all our time fearing today and don't take care of today, we probably will have problems tomorrow. So just go back to when you're saying that it's reasonable, it's rational to understand that we need to take care of today and not worry about tomorrow. How does that walk out in life?
Well, just put it to the test. I mean, just, something I get afraid of is that when I maybe get in a disagreement with the owner of the restaurant, and maybe I say something that's, maybe too forward or whatever, or we get in a little argument, and then I have my days off. And then I sit on those 2 days off, and I'm just worried, oh gosh, it's going to be so uncomfortable when I see him on Friday, and when I go back into work, it's just going to be terrible, and I'll just sit there and lie in fear over that, and it will take me out for the weekend if I'm not careful.
What about another thought is, when I come back, he's going to give me my notice.
Right. Or, my relationship's going to change where, now I'm on a short leash. Now I can't get away with all the stuff that I get away with. And now I better mind my P's and Q's, and maybe he's tired of me. And yeah, he's just going to sit me down and fire me. You know, this hasn't happened in quite some time, but I just, I've lived this so many times that this is a reasonable example for me to give, and I've just been here so many times, and so throughout the weekend I'll just sit there and I'll be full of fear, and it'll give me anxiety, and it'll just be hovering over me, and it's just this is what it looks like is I'll be sitting there, and then I'll just be focused on it for 10 minutes, and it gives me anxiety, my heart starts racing, and then I'll forget about it. I'll go to the gym, and then it's just boom, there it is again, and it's 10 more minutes of just anxiety, and oh God, I'm just replaying it in my head, and it's just terrible. And then I don't go do the stuff that I set out to do, because it's like, oh, screw this, So it's just, and then I get to work and everything's fine. He doesn't even remember that it happened.
So now let's talk about how that was your normal life. What is the difference now? So say the same scenario. What would you do differently, or what do you do differently now?
Well, I can tell you that I hold more respect for him, and I'm less likely and less quick to saying something smart, or letting him know that I think that he's stupid, or whatever he did was dumb. He's the owner, and I need to respect the position. So I don't get myself in that situation very often anymore.
Well, so stop right there. So part of it is, if you want to take care of fear, one way to take care of fear, besides going to Bible promises about how to overcome fear, is the one way to take care of fear is just don't do stupid stuff, so you have less fear.
Yeah, sure. And honestly, this is what we're talking about, is a life with a relationship with Jesus. It is easier, and it's easier in this way, like what we're talking about. Like, there's just less opportunity for me to, my ego, for, how ridiculous for me to go and tell the owner, he's dumb, or he's, the way that he, does things is silly, or, or put him down, or make fun of him, or, it's just all ego driven. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and think about the fact that maybe he's not making some good choices or decisions, some things, and then you have relationship with him in such a way that you can actually have a conversation about, hey, I was wondering, maybe if we did this. I don't know if you can have that relationship with him or not, but I can tell you, in the ministry that I do, working with the individuals in a community, where I will tell you, people get on Facebook and they badmouth the government leaders, the officials, and they use their name literally, and call them minions and all these things, and then they wonder why the person doesn't want to sit down and hear their opinion about how to solve a problem in the community. And then they go and say, well, you want to sit down and talk to me, because they don't talk to anybody. And then I say, well, how come they talk to me? Why is it I'm able to talk to them and share things with them? And I've had conversations where I tell them I think their decisions are poor. In fact, there's something that's come up that I'm getting with 2 or 3 of the leaders, and I'm going to say, you guys need to stop this, because you're losing support because there's some foolish things that you're doing, and you just need to stop this stuff. You're giving ammunition to individuals who are literally jerks, but you give ammunition to them, and then I can start to say I know why they're a jerk sometimes. And so I wouldn't be able to do that if all I did is mock them. And so I have no, and I don't put myself in there's lawsuits that are going on. I don't do things that put me in a realm of lawsuits, and so I have no fear of speaking truthfully, because you can't they can't do a lawsuit against somebody that speaks truthfully and respectfully. And so it's interesting how you even took your story, and I think it could apply to so many situations. And again, one thing that happens is, I was a hard-working employee. I could be a jerk sometimes because of the fact I could get away with it, like you talk about. But the bottom line is overall, you're a hard worker. And then if I had a boss that say, hey, I need to have a time with you, what time would be good to get together? It could be a pastor saying to me, hey, Rich, when you want to get together, we need to talk. My head would always go to, this is where the fear of tomorrow, fear of 2 hours from now, is I wonder why I'm in trouble. And it had nothing to do with being in trouble. Nothing.
Exactly.
There's the stories of, you meet with the boss and then he gives you a raise, right? And so you're worried about where you got in trouble when you get a raise. I mean, it just shows the foolishness of worrying about tomorrow, again, whether it's tomorrow the next day or tomorrow 2 hours from now. So another verse I want to go to is about the fact that fear is a trap. and that fear is destructive. In Proverbs 29:25 it says, "The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe." The answer to fear is to trust the Lord. He will watch over us. But what about when he does not watch over us? Harm comes our way. There is good news in the midst of bad news. And so I'm going to cover that in a moment. But because somebody's going to say, well, the fear of man is a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. And I trusted the Lord and something bad happened to me. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But what about the fact that fear is a trap, that fear be destructive? That the reality is that fear can put us in bad situations.
Sure. I mean, that's the whole point of, I think, where we started doing this. I mean, that's something that we look at when I'm doing the step work with the guys, and we look at how many traps that we have set, that we have laid for ourselves because of fear. And the way that I like to do it is I like to just say, okay, we identify the fear, and then we can say, okay, like, how has this hurt you? And then operating through that, you can draw direct parallel lines, right, from like fear to a bad decision. And then then the question gets presented, do you think that if you didn't have that fear, so for instance, it's like, okay, well, I'm going through a divorce and I'm worried about losing my kids, so I made the decision to lie about my wife in court, and now I'm in trouble for it. And so,
or I'm overwhelmed and I go drinking because I can't deal with it. So that fear just led you into some destructive lifestyle.
Right. And so I was, we're able to like look at this, and so on face value, the resentment was my wife's being a jerk to me in court, and she's pushing for all the 100% custody. And then so it's like, so then we would look at like, okay, well, why do you think she's doing that? What's your role? And so that they would, he'd be like, well, I lied about her in court, and we both knew it was a lie. And then so, well, why did you do that? Well, I was afraid that I was going to lose my kids, and I thought that this would guarantee that I got my kids back. And so so what were you afraid of? And it's like, well, I was afraid of losing my kids. So you could draw this direct line. Okay, your fear was you were afraid that you're going to lose your kids. And that was so consuming, you went and did something really crazy. You lied you literally committed perjury. Like you lied in a courtroom. Is that wise? And, they can easily see, no, that was not smart at all. So are you better off after you've made that decision? Nope, that was a bad mistake. I wish I didn't do that. Okay, but you can see now what happens when, Joe Schmo, whatever his name is, when you are based in fear, when you're afraid of something, this is the type of decision that you make. This was your best idea through that lens of fear. And faced with this stuff, you have no alternative to go like, whoa, yeah, that's not good. Fear is really bad. So then you have, well, what can you do with it? Well, you give it to God. And then because if you're not afraid of that and you're living in God's world, where you have a trust in God, and it's like, okay, God, whatever it is, you do. Like, this is your world. If I am going to lose custody of my kids for a little while, then so be it. And I'll just work hard to get them back. And you do it the honorable way. But based off of that, like just in quick time, when you stop make decisions off that, I've seen it so many times where pretty quickly things turn around. And, all of a sudden your ex-wife or the woman who you're going to a divorce with, all of a sudden has a little trust in you because she can see that, whoa, like you're not doing that bad stuff anymore and you're making better decisions. And then she's much more likely to be useful, which is, I'm watching it unfold, that whole scenario unfold directly in front of me right now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I've actually seen it just recently with a couple, and both of them operating out of fear. Both of them wanted to make the other one look like the worst parent, right? And I warned them both. I says, here's the danger. You both are trying to make each other look like the worst parent. Guess what? The next thing can happen is, of course, decide neither one of you are qualified to be a parent.
Right.
Right? And the reality is, just let the truth play out. Trust God.
Yep.
Literally trust God that He is going to work out the details. God's worked this all out, that there is a good place for the child. See, that's what matters most, isn't it? What's the best environment for the child? The daughter is not being a victim of the parents. And so many times in the things you're talking about is the child becomes the victim out of all of this. And so, praise God, that isn't happening.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole point. when two parents are based out of fear, you rob yourself of being able to think about the child.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on this topic alone, and with so many other different things that are tied into it. But we want to get to the promises. But I argue there is a promise, even this proverb, Proverbs 29:25. The fear of man lays a snare. Whatever trusts in the Lord is safe. That you're safe in trusting the Lord. And then I want to cover, some people say, well, no, it's not true because I trusted the Lord and this happened, that happened. Well, here's a promise for those who are followers of Christ, those who have a relationship with Jesus Christ, is the good news is there is no bad news. I want to say that again. The good news is there's no bad news. Why is there no bad news? Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. God causes, listen, he causes, that means he makes all things work together for good. So if you love God, if you're living according to his purposes, you're trusting in him, he makes everything work out for good. And if he makes everything work out for good, there is no bad. Before we get to all the various Bible verses on fear, I want to stick on that one just a little bit. That if we believe that God is rational, God is logical, God is reasonable, that we believe his word is true, he says all things work together for good. So whatever we fear the most, the very thing that we literally fear the most, that almost for sure looks like the consequences for my behavior is going to be this, and make the worst case scenario, and it happens, that if you know God, it is going to work out for good. So if it's going to work out for good, there's literally nothing to fear. Now, that takes faith to believe that. It takes walking that out. But you start walking that out, you live with that principle, guess what happens? The principle comes true. So, Bobby, this takes something. I don't know what it is. This is spur of the moment. We always do these live. We don't prepare ahead of time. But whatever you have feared literally the most, has God used it to make something good come out of it? Can you think of anything off the top of your head, spur of the moment? Proverbs says, fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts the Lord is safe. And then some people say, well, it's not safe because look what happened to me. This terrible thing happened to me, so God didn't watch over me. God didn't protect me. But have you seen good come out of the worst case scenario?
I think I said it last week was, I was, when I lost my housing and I lost my girlfriend and I lost my job. And so I was broke, living in my car with nothing and alone. And I just, at the time, I just was ready to commit suicide. I just thought it was the absolute worst thing in the world. And, since then,
totally overcome with fear.
Yeah, I was afraid that, what am I going to do? I can't live in my car forever. I don't have money. Where am I going to get money? How am I going to eat? I'm going to go back to jail. There's no way I'm going to get loaded again. I'm going to start using, and I'm afraid that, I'm going to hurt my mom because I'm going to kill myself, and I don't want to do that. I was just completely paralyzed with fear. And I told you I listened to that video, and it was just this. I listened to that video and also called the one guy in the program that I know that I semi had relationship, and it just said, are you living in the problem or the solution? And then I listened to that video, and it basically said, help others. God, you're kind of making a deal. God, take away this pain, and I'll help other people. And that was the deal I made. And since then, so many other things have happened. I put my life back together. I have a better relationship with my mom and dad that I just didn't have back then, and I thought I did. I have a wonderful, wonderful, healthy relationship. I have a great job. I have a great place to live. It's safer. It's cleaner. I'm more responsible. My world is still very different, and that was God building.
So all things do work together for good. Then you're saying, I'm convinced that ultimately, if God's in your life, that all things, anything, everything, ultimately, no matter how bad it is, will work together for good.
Yep, and the proof is here about what a life looks like. And I recently found out that my girlfriend has, some really, really, it's very scary. She's got some stuff with her heart that's really not good, and she's got some stuff with her stomach that's not good, and they're testing for all these cancers, and it's just it's like really bad what's going on. And you know, my first reaction was obviously just based on fear, and it was just like, oh, you know, it was just like really sad, and it was just like emotional. But you know, through the process of trusting God, it's just, you know, I mean, even though I may not want it, you know, and it's going to hurt like crazy, and I know it, but like if something was to happen to her, or if something, you know, she has something, or you know, we'll get through it, and it'll be for a reason, because this is God's deal and not mine. And you know, I'm making decisions based on that. And you know, I'm today, instead of being overridden with fear and what's going to happen, you know, I'm there's a certain sense of calm that this is in God's hands, and I'm you know, I'm just able to be there instead of like panic and fear and emotion. I'm there to be supportive and loving.
So
it's a very, very big difference.
A big difference. So you just led us into the next Bible verse we're going to look at. God gives us power to overcome fear. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. Sound mind means a disciplined mind, a mind of self-control, a well-balanced mind, wise discretion. So it says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but he's given us power, love, his love. If God loves me, I know that he has me in his hands. He's going to take care of me, and a sound mind. So you're looking at the situation with your girlfriend with a well-balanced mind, a disciplined mind. You're using wise discretion. You're not responding out of fear, and he's giving you the power to be able to address, confront, live with whatever goes on, and so that you don't have to have fear, because he's giving you the power to overcome the fear.
Yeah, it's certainly not a fear that it is a sense of power. It's not a fear. I mean,
and again, we want to make it clear, you got some fears. I mean, both of you. I'm sure there's some fear in the midst of what's going on, but it's not a consuming fear that overcomes you and takes control. You're living above it.
Yeah, I mean, now it's just like I don't know. There's just a sense of like, I mean, it was the same with my mom too. It's you know, her situation is just it's out of my control, and you know, using logic and reason, there's not much I can do, and you just be there when I can be there for her. But I mean, if these two women in my life were to get sick or anything, that, you know, I mean, the fear of like, well, yeah, what's my life going to be like without them, and all that. But it's not, you know, this is going to hurt. Like, I'm afraid to just be like hurt, like, because getting hurt doesn't feel good. But, you know, here's a great example. Here's a really good example. There's a coworker of mine who's going through something similar. His girlfriend just broke up with him, and his sister died. She ended up dying, but this was while she was sick in a hospital bed too. I texted him just to check in and see if he's okay, and he's literally telling me like he doesn't know what he's going to do, you know, and he said he can't walk. For some reason he couldn't walk. He said that he's so weak. This has taken such a toll for him that he can't walk. And I suggested like, hey man, you should get up and like come to work or go golfing, or, you know, you just get up off the couch. And he's like, no, I can't even, I have to have my dad and my brother go move all my stuff because I can't even stand up. And it's like, it's probably an extreme case of what fear looks like, but like that had such, you know, I mean, it was just crazy. It's just, but I could relate to it, because I know what feeling when life gets out of control like that, and you're just losing, you know, you're losing a part of you, that like, it's very, very scary, and it hurts. And, you know, you just lose a part of yourself when a relationship ends, and, you know, a certain identity of yourself. But I mean, when your identity is grounded through God, then that stuff doesn't matter. The way two people handle pretty much the same situation is quite odd. And I mean, the difference is relationship with God.
The call got dropped with Bobby. I lost the connection with Bobby. I'm actually in Arkansas, and Bobby lives in Seattle. And we do our podcast over the phone, and I've lost connection with them. Actually, I should be honest about it. I realized I had my phone on mute, and he couldn't hear me, and then he disconnected. So we did not get through all the Bible promises. We'll do another podcast with the additional Bible promises that we have in the Bible. So we'll get back to the more. So in our next podcast, we'll cover more of the Bible verses that promise us that we do not have to fear and that we can trust God. And as Bobby said, the difference between two people is when it comes to severe issues and challenges in life, that the difference between fear and being overcome from fear and not being overcome from fear is if you're able to trust the Lord and know that He will make all things work out together for good. And so you lean upon Him, and then because you're leaning upon Him, you make different choices so you don't become snared in the midst of fear. So again, we will cover the more Bible promises in our next podcast.
You've been listening to There Is Hope Radio. All advice and counsel given was for informational purposes only. To listen to There Is Hope Radio podcast, obtain show transcripts, or to keep There Is Hope Radio on the air, go to creatingfutures.org/There Is Hope. That's creatingfutures.org/There Is Hope.